I used to be so triggered getting unsolicited feedback. My chest would tighten, and honestly, I would just be building up my defense. But then something kind of kicked in, and then I realized wait, really not that serious. Today, we're gonna unpack the ego. Hi, everyone. My name is Hunter Nunes. This is Reflect, Improve, and Thrive, where we grow one day at a time. Hi, guys. I first want to start this episode. If you have been listening week after week, so sorry. I had to take a little break last week. I just had a lot happening in my life, and I'll kind of get into it more. But I just want to say, so sorry you missed me. I missed all of you guys. Thank you to everyone that has been tuning in. I feel like slowly and slowly more and more people are joining the little community, especially the TikToks. So shout out to y'all and thank you just for being here. I really appreciate all of you and I'm excited to continue making more episodes. I just wanted to get that out of the way. So I wanted to talk about my week. So feel free. I do have segments in here. So if you want to like skip ahead, you could totally do that. Totally okay. But if you wanna catch up with me, then keep listening. I had a really crazy week. So for some context, I actually just went to Seattle for one of my best friends is got engaged and her man and her family basically like planned for all of her friends to kind of, well, not all of her friends, but some of her friends to just be there and support her during this. And it was really heartwarming and it made me feel so fulfilled. And it honestly just is kind of crazy because she's like one of my like childhood friends. So like to see her in this light of like, well, we're like growing up. We're all like 23, 22 now, which is insane. I just feel like we were just in high school making TikToks. Like, this is weird that we're all, like, at this age now of, like, getting proposed to. But it made me so happy, and it just got me really feeling grateful to just be a part of that, you know what I mean? Like, I just love love. So it was just such a good experience, and plus, I got to see my bestie, Kaden. So I ended up flying out to Seattle, and she lives in Washington, so she just kinda, like, drove up, and we just, like, hung out for, like, one full day, and it was really nice, and I already miss her, but she's about to come back to California for her birthday, which I'm super excited about. But yeah, so that's kind of what's been happening. I feel like I was just like go 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 all week just because I was like prepping to go to Seattle and plus just, doing all the adult things, running errands, doing all that stuff. So, yeah, but let me know how your guys' week was. Let me know in the DMs or you can comment down below and I do respond to everything. So, just so you guys know, if you ever have any questions or anything, I will respond to it. Another thing I kind of wanted to do every single episode is kind of do like a self-care tip of the day. And I feel like this would be kind of fun just because I'm really, really working on finding things that work well for me and like make me a happier, healthier, better version of myself. And I was like, wait, like this would be a great opportunity to just give you guys little ideas of other little things you can start doing, rather it be like skincare tip or like, just something that's been helping with me, like my mental health or physical health, all that stuff. Okay. Today, I wanted to just recommend breath work. I don't know if you guys have tried it or if you've tried it and just like didn't like it. It has been the most helpful thing. And I feel like I've been really leaning on it more and more, especially just like this last week. I don't know what was in the air. I just was feeling really overwhelmed, honestly, and I just realized it was taking me out. Like, I was just so focused on the future, and I just felt so behind. I don't know. So I used breath work to kind of just come back to center and like remember like this is the present moment and to be grateful for where I'm at because like this is the truth was what's happening right now. So like let's focus on that and let's find the good. You could find them like different videos on YouTube. I like to do it on YouTube, but you could do it on it. And I think there's even like apps and stuff like that. So highly, highly recommends that. So let's just kind of get straight into the episode. Thank you for catching up with me and we'll catch up next week more. This episode is all about the ego trap. I feel like recently I've become more and more aware of my ego and I realized how much it pulls me out of the present moment and I'm so focused on like the future or sometimes I'm like ruminating on the past. But something I've really wanted to dive deep in today's episode is the more curious you can be about your ego, the less power it'll hold over you. So let's just get straight into the reflect section. With this reflect section, I did write a couple of questions down to just kind of like think about. Feel free to use this rather when you're journaling or just some questions to ponder this week to see how the ego can be kind of ruling your life. The first one I have is, do I find myself needing to be right more than I need to be at peace? I feel like it's dependent on the situation and honestly just like the circumstances. I feel like sometimes like I prioritize my peace, and I feel like the older I get, the more I do prioritize my peace. I think growing up, I was definitely a little bit more of someone was like, "I need to be right," and I think it's partially because I kinda grew up in a family that was like that. I feel like we all just wanted to be right no matter what it was. Even if we were wrong, you would never. Like, we're still gonna, like, fight just to be right. You know what I mean? So I feel like growing up, I was very used to, like, needing that, just like the validation of like, "I'm right, you're wrong, haha," you know? But as I get older, I feel like I'm becoming more and more aware of when I'm like, "It's not that serious, it's not that deep." But I mean, of course, there are times where I'm still, sometimes I fall into the category of like, I'm gonna be right and nobody else is gonna like tell me otherwise. For the most part, I feel like I do prioritize my peace more and more. Another question I have is, whose approval am I still chasing? And then a counter question is, what would happen if I stop? And I feel like for me, I think where I'm at in life right now, the approval I've recently been chasing is it sounds weird to say, but, like, society, I feel like or it's just something I've been thinking about more and more. Like, I think as I step into doing more, like, creative hobbies or trying to, like, honestly make it not necessarily I guess, yeah, a job or, like, trying to, like, at least make income from what I like to do, it's I think I get in my head a lot, and so, then because of that, I try to chase, like, "Oh, well, what would be the most realistic thing?" You know what I mean? So sometimes I feel like even when I'm posting on social media, I get so, like, a little bit insecure, a little bit, but I'm really trying to work on that and work on my visibility or work on being okay with my visibility is what I should say. At the same time, I think I really do fall into, like, well, what would make me the most money? What would make me look the most mature? What would make me look the most successful? And, like, what is, like, a cookie cutter life I can, like people can just look at and be like, "Wow, that's so successful," rather than I feel like when you're in the beginning stages of doing anything like podcasting, for example, or I don't know, even social media or, like, just doing your own business, I feel like for a l again, this is just a lens of what I think people are perceiving me as, and it's not to say that it's true, it's just kind of like the voice in the back of my head. I think sometimes I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is embarrassing, like, what am I doing? Like, I should really be focusing on, like, a career. Like, do I need to go back to college? Do I need to take out student loans? Do I need to do this career? Do I need to do that career?" And I will ruminate and ruminate and ruminate. And so when I say, like, whose approval am I chasing, I just think it's, like, society's because I don't think that's actually what I want, but I think that's what other people I want to just appear as successful. I guess that is the best way. So if I don't know, if I'm going after my hobbies a little too much, I do get a little bit, like, nervous about, like, again, how is that gonna be perceived? Is it gonna be good or is it gonna be bad? I don't know, but I'm working on it, and it's like, what would happen if I stop? And I guess if I stop chasing society's approval, I guess I would only have to focus on my own, right? So I guess that is something shit, wait, that kinda, like I clocked my own T there. But yeah, I guess that's what would happen is I would just, again, I'd focus on my own opinion. And that's the most important opinion, you guys. So shit, maybe I needed to ask myself that. That was a pretty good question. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I guess that's my answer. It's society's, but if it stopped, I guess I would only be focusing on my own, which is what I should be doing. Okay. This next question says, who would I be if I stripped away my job title, followers, relationship status? And I think this one is a really good question because when it comes to your ego, I feel like a lot of us tie our self-worth. I think if I were to like strip away all of that, I think what I would really just want to be known for is just my ability to connect with others. I feel like I do have at least the people in my life, I feel like I'm able to really, like, connect with them on deeper levels where we can talk about things that are not surface level, and I think that's just maybe who I would be as someone that's, like, caring, hopefully, or that's what I like to think, and I guess that's how I perceive myself, is someone that's kind and compassionate, and I hope others think that too, but that's how I feel about myself. So yeah, so that's to say, I mean, I feel like a big reflection that I've noticed while I've been talking is just how much I kind of associate career and stuff right now and how my ego kind of plays a big part in how I go about things, and like the steps I'm taking, I guess. That's like the big thing I'm learning. Alrighty, so now we're gonna go straight into the improve section. This one, I kind of have like a part one, part two type of situation. So, part one is just going to be like mindset shifts that I think would be helpful in order to like overcome your ego. And then part two is going to be when ego comes up, this is how you deal with it. So, let's get into part one. So, the first thing is I wrote here a good mindset shift to make is I need to be right and change that to I need to be at peace. And this is, again, a big one, especially if you're having a lot of like heated conversations or if your friend says something to you and you're like trying to clock their tea when it's like kind of unnecessary. Or even like with your family or siblings, like sometimes it's really not that serious. And what you should really be focusing in is just literally like being at peace with it. You know what I mean? I feel like because our egos really just try to like win the argument. Our ego wants us to be the best of the best. But then, at the same time, it's like if you're trying to win every single argument, I feel like it goes to show that, like, you're kind of only looking out for yourself in that situation, and sometimes that's not okay. Sometimes you really gotta be like, oh, like, say someone's trying to, like, tell you I don't know, about their life and, like, rather than you trying to, like maybe they say something that, like, potentially triggered you, rather than you trying to, like, clock their tea or anything, like, what if you just, like, accept that that's just how they feel about things, and rather than trying to, like, make decisions for them, you just allow them to be them, and I feel like then you could keep your peace because 'cause you're like, "Oh, well, maybe I don't think that way," but, like, if you think that way, like, I support you, and, like, I don't need to be right in this situation. And most of the time, I feel like they're not everything, but a lot of the time, there's a lot of situations where you think you have to be right, but sometimes there's, like, everything's so subjective, so you trying to be right, it's just kind of it's painting a weird vibe. Okay, and then this next mindset is rather than trying to compare yourself, instead try to think about contribution. And this one is a big thing, especially when it comes to, like, growing up in your 20s. I feel like it's so easy for us to compare ourselves and we'll compare ourselves to the girl online, the guy online, the best friends, maybe they're doing things bigger than you are doing, or maybe that's just what you're feeling. But regardless, instead of trying to think about like how you can stand out to make yourself look better, what if you just focus on the contributions that you're making? So, how I would think about like a situation or like a scenario is like say that you are in a friend group and maybe you're comparing yourself to everyone in that group and say you're just wanting to be like the funny one or something like that. And so you're just trying to compare everyone's interactions. You're trying to see how you can kind of look better or like make more people laugh or just, something along those lines. Rather than like focusing on it from that lens, change your perspective to just think about how you can contribute and let that be enough. Like, oh, I made them laugh. You contributed. And let's move forward. Like, it's not always about how you can be better. It's more of just like how you go into those conversations and how you can contribute. And something I wrote in here is ego measures itself against others. And I think that's you've probably already felt that, like even when you're feeling like insecure, you're just basically telling yourself like they're better than you or you're better than them. In reality, nobody's better than you. Like, and nobody's less than you. Okay. Like, everyone is just people on this earth, different circumstances, different experiences, but don't let your ego rule that. Don't try to compare yourself and think that it's you against everyone. Because it's like, bruh, why are we thinking like that? Instead, really focus on like the present moment and think about how you can add value to the conversation. Don't try to put yourself down or others down in order to put someone on top, you know? So yeah, those are just kind of like the mindset shifts that I've just been like thinking about. So just focus on, instead of needing to be right, just how can you be at peace in this moment? And then the second one, rather than focusing on comparison, let's focus on contribution instead. All right, so now we made it to part two. So this is all about what to do when your ego shows up. Step one is to catch it. And obviously, that was probably like, duh. But sometimes you don't even realize your ego is like eating you alive just because it's so heightened and your fight or flight kind of like kicks in. So bring yourself to the awareness. Catch that you realize like, "Oh shit, like why am I trying to be right now?" And just be curious. Like feel the heat, feel yourself being like, "Oh my god, like it's happening." But once you kind of name it, I feel like it just kind of creates distance from like everything. Then you can like kind of like step back being like, "Oh, this is my ego." Like and then you can kind of take a step back being like, "Oh, so that's what's happening right now." And step 2 is to just kind of like sit with it. And what I mean by this is, so for example, you're in the argument, you know what I mean? Just feel what's coming up and just kind of like be curious about it, of being like, what is really happening here? Sometimes this is when we can really get the most insight and wisdom from ourselves, because we can feel, oh, I'm actually feeling heated because they said that. Or maybe you said something that, like, now you're like, oh my God, like, what is happening? Just feel it, sit with it, try to like just be curious. Don't necessarily judge it, because then I feel like then you kind of put yourself down. Just be curious. You're a human, emotions happen, and it's our duty to kind of like feel through it and try to understand it better, so then next time we can learn from that. Also, when you're sitting with it, you don't want to act, you don't want to say something you're going to regret, which leads to more and more not so fun conversations. But ask yourself kind of like, what are you afraid of? I think that's a big thing when the ego comes up, is we're just trying to feel validated. We want to feel good, And so most of that it stems from being afraid. Or at least that's something that I've like kind of found in my life, is I realize when I am feeling like that ego is ruling my life, it's most of the time due to me being afraid of something, rather it be success or someone perceiving me the wrong way, etc. And then step number 3, you're just gonna like ask yourself this reframe question. So I wrote it down. Would my most grounded version respond now? So I feel like a lot of the time, again, like when you're in the heat of the moment, sometimes you just act. You say things that you don't mean. But again, it's just because your ego is just like, I want to be right. I want to be perceived as I'm greater. I don't want to feel less than, etc. So think about when you are in this situation, you named it, you kind of sat with it. Now ask yourself, like, how would I respond? Like, if my most peaceful version is like in my body right now, how would they kind of act? Would they respond? Would they just be like, I just need to take some time to reflect? Or would they just kind of be like, oh, this is really not that serious. Like, I'm gonna let them be right and let them die on that hill, because girl, I could care less, because sometimes that's what you gotta do. Sometimes it's really not that serious and you wanna be protecting your peace, because you know your truth, and that's really all that matters. Like, you don't need everyone to know your truth and like know where you're at. And step number 4, move forward from a choice and not impulse. So to break that down, when I say choice, I want you to really be decisive about what you're going to do moving forward, rather than just like the impulse of what you like, your reaction. Just try to move with more grace, with more thinking of what your most grounded version would do, rather than just like talking your shit, because sometimes you don't need to talk your shit. Sometimes you do. And again, this is all situational, but most of the time just move forward being like, yeah, totally. Yes. And then just remember that like it's all a learning process. It's going to take repetition. So the more that you can show up when the ego kind of comes up and you feel heated and everything, the more you can sit with it and decide not to react. It's going to slowly create, like, your brain's going to be like, "Oh, when this comes up, I don't react." And then slowly you're going to like rewire your brain of just being like, "Oh, I'm so at peace right now." Like, and that's the goal. So kind of just going over everything. So the first thing is just to catch that your ego, you're feeling it. Step number 2, you're just going to sit with it, try to be curious, and don't judge yourself, because you're human. Ego happens. Step number 3, you're just going to ask yourself, what would the most grounded version of myself do right now? And then number 4, just respond from choice and not impulse. So that's just kind of like a simple little step by step guide there. And remember, This is all a learning game. It's a learning process, and everyone's on this journey. So don't feel like you're alone, and don't beat yourself up when you do catch yourself reacting. Like, girl, you're a human. You're not a robot, and it's normal to, especially if you're someone that reacts a lot. It's going to be normal for you to kind of go back and forth of that. Like sometimes you respond and sometimes you don't. And the more and more you do it, the easier it'll get. And but again, it's going to happen for the rest of your life. So just know it's a learning game, but soon you will become super zen and at peace, and you'll feel super good about the decisions you're making. Alrighty, guys, so we made it to the thrive section. My favorite section because I want to hype all of you up. You know what I like to say? Think about yourself 6 months from now. Think about how you're just truly at peace. You feel so good about life. Your coworker comes up to you, they try to like say something that's like, and you're just like, okay, like think your tea. Like that's your choice, but, like, I'm not gonna, like, fulfill that. I'm grounded. I'm not gonna be ruled by my ego. If you wanna be right, you should be right, and I'll be right, but, like, you don't need to know that. Like, I can keep my peace, and we're just gonna move with that. We're gonna move with grace, and when your ego comes up, I want you to just be a little bit more curious. Just try to understand, like, this is such a great way for you to understand yourself, and the more conversations you have with yourself, rather journaling, talking to friends, talking to yourself, learn about yourself, learn from these, and just think about all the wisdom that you can find in life, just literally for just being more curious about yourself and your reactions. And then you can also give this wisdom to other people, and we can all just spread more love. We can all be a little bit more gentler, which is what we need in this world. So just know you doing the work is actually helping everyone around you because they're going to start seeing you and they're going to start asking you, like, how are you so calm? And you'll be like, I work on my ego. And I honestly just feel like the more you take the time to be curious, you just respond with more presence and less reactions, you're going to also, I feel like in all areas of your life, everything is just going to be easier. Honestly, because you'll realize that it really is not that serious. And most of the things, most of the problems we create, they're literally like, "What are we doing?" Like, we don't need that drama in our life, especially as we're growing and we're becoming more wise, we're becoming a lot more calm, and then you're gonna start making more decisions that will lead to better things. You're gonna start attracting more good things in your life, honestly, because you're gonna be moving from, honestly, an identity that just attracts more and you accept more and you understand yourself more, and I think this will also help you understand other people more because you're gonna start to see how many people react from ego, and then you'll be like, "Oh shit," like, you can clock everyone's teeth. Don't clock it because you don't need to be right, but, like, unless they need to be clocked, but yeah. So again, think about that. 6 months from now, you're gonna be so calm, you're gonna feel at ease, you're gonna start attracting all this good energy, more opportunities are gonna come your way, better friendships, better relationships, and you're just gonna feel like on top of the world. So, hopefully this episode was something that you kind of felt, inspired you a little bit or something that you could take from it. And again, I want to apologize. I was gone last week, but just know, like, moving forward, I don't really have anything crazy happening for the next couple of months. So, we'll be locked in. But I am so grateful for all of you guys that tune in every single week. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I love seeing that number go up. But again, if you don't, totally okay. You want to know why? Because my ego is not ruled by how many followers I have. There we go. See, already working on it. But again, really grateful for you guys. I'm sending all of you guys positive energy. And if you do listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, feel free. You can actually follow on there. And if you do feel inclined, I do really appreciate reviews. I do really appreciate 5-star reviews, but whatever you feel like. And I have new episodes that come out every single Monday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then also, I have weekly meditations on my YouTube channel. So every Thursday, 6 a.m., I do try to put out a new meditation. I do feel like meditation is very important. So if you do feel like you want to do that, feel free to subscribe. It's a YouTube exclusive. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to DM me on Instagram, TikTok, or even just comment down below. And I am more than happy to connect with you guys. And I am wishing you guys all a wonderful week. And I'll see you next time. Bye.